Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of Ushanka Show. Здравствуйте, дорогие товарищи! В эфире программа Ushanka Show. And today we're turning to the book Black on Red, My 44 Years Inside of the Soviet Union by Robert Robinson. And this is episode number 29. And just in case if you're new to my channel, I have a separate playlist where all the Black on Red episodes are located, and I'll provide the link below in the comment section. Okay, so in this episode we're talking about early 1970s, most likely 1973, because based on this photo of Robert Robinson's Soviet passport, it was issued on December 19, 1973, and he spent almost the whole year trying to obtain passport and permission to leave a country on vacation. And just a short side note, I was born in 1971, so for about 4 years, 71, 72, 73, 1974, Robert Robinson and Comrade Sergei Sputnikov lived in the same country. And today's episode is especially close to my heart because you're gonna learn what kind of trouble Robert Robinson had to go through in order to receive first a passport for traveling abroad, Soviet passport, then to get a visa to travel to Uganda. Many years later, in 1990, I went pretty much through exact same process with really similar results. So not much changed in those 20 years. Which reminds me, one time one of my viewers posted a comment and he said he really enjoys Ushanka Show. He enjoys learning about Soviet Union, but he asked me that please don't ever say again that Soviet Union was like a low security prison. And today, after listening to the story of Robert Robinson, I want you to tell me if you think that Soviet Union could be compared to the low security prison. I don't know how many of you guys watched every single episode on Ushanka Show, but a while back I had a video called KGB had 11 reasons to refuse your trip abroad, and it's about Soviet tourism. It got only about 17,000 views, but if you watch that video, you will recognize what troubles Robert Robinson was going through, and you will see all those reasons. Okay, now back to Robert Robinson book. So this is early 1972, and he is desperately trying to go on vacation, wink wink, to Africa in order to escape Soviet Union. A few months later, in early 1972, I received another letter from Ambassador Lubega. This one was an official invitation stamped with ambassador's coat of arms and bearing his signature. He wanted me to spend my annual vacation with him and his family in Uganda. The next day I went to the Soviet Visas and Registration Office to ask what I had to do to visit Uganda. After waiting an hour for a response, the receptionist returned me the letter and explained that it was not a valid document. And I said, why not? The letter must be endorsed by the Soviet ambassador to Ethiopia. Ethiopia, I exclaimed, but the man is from Uganda. But the letter is from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, she replied sternly. Okay, so for those who don't understand what was going on here in this story, I will explain. So every Soviet citizen at the age of 16 would receive a passport. So this passport was valid only for the Soviet Union. It's not for traveling, just it was your legal document. We didn't use our driver's licenses since hardly any people owned cars. So every Soviet citizen received a Soviet passport at the age of 16, and that was pretty much your ID. But this passport was no good for traveling to the other country. You needed a different passport called заграничный passport, so like foreign passport. And in order to get that passport, first of all, you needed to have official invitation from a person or organization abroad. But you see, in case of Robert Robertson, sometimes that was enough just to have an invitation. Like lady demanded should be endorsed by Soviet ambassador, just another crazy hurdle on the way to get, it's not getting even a permission to leave, it's just to get a passport. You know, there's more steps to it. This is just to get a document that allows you to travel to other countries. Okay, so now Robert Robinson says, and that meant that I was officially eligible to apply to go to Africa for my vacation. But I knew that eligibility was one thing and actually getting on the airplane, traveling out of the country was something quite different. So he said, I already went through an unbelievable amount of red tape involved in trying to secure a foreign ministry approval to travel abroad. First, there was the autobiography. then the recommendation from my factory, the references from my house committee, the long complicated application, 6 new photographs, and 40 rubles worth of postage stamps. So let's see how he got the recommendation from his factory. 5 weeks after I submitted my application to my factory, like how your factory relates to where you want to go for your vacation, right? I was called before the 6-man shop party commission that was the first barrier to acceptance. So the chairman read the group's recommendation aloud. After letting me comment, he asked for those who approved to raise their hands. So the 6 hands went in the air, and so he got approved. But then listen to this. So Robert Robertson says, "Comrades, please wait a minute. Could you change the last paragraph, the one that reads, 'However, the party committee of the machine shop is of the opinion that the climate in Africa will have a harmful effect on his health after living in the Soviet Union for so long,' because he was afraid that this will discourage the people in the visa office from approving my application." So this people at the factory still try to screw Robert Robertson by putting this little paragraph. Yeah, we approve his application to travel abroad, but we're afraid that climate in Africa, in Uganda, would be too bad for his health because he lived for 40-some years in the Soviet Union and he can't handle African climate anymore. So here's Robert Robertson again. "Comrades, I want you to know that I was brought up in the tropical climate of Jamaica and Cuba, which is the same kind of climate in Uganda. I'm positive the warm weather will not bother me. Please delete this last paragraph." They knew what they have done. It was a typical dirty trick. In response to my plea, the chairman said they would think it over. I heard nothing for 3 weeks. So it took another 3 weeks till he finally got that paragraph removed. So as I said, 3 weeks later, he was told to report to the office of the secretary of the factory party committee after work. There were 6 other people there, all applicants for traveling abroad to Eastern Bloc countries. So now he's going for the second round, but together with 6 other guys. And it was about 100 people now this time. So it's not just... We entered a hall where more than 100 party members were gathered to rule on our applications. Can you imagine? You want to go and spend vacation in Mexico, and you need to go in the factory meeting, and they'll vote if they trust you to go and have fun over there. Then he continues, "The audience seemed serious. These party representatives had been gathered from every section of the factory to decide on the fate of our 7 travel recommendations. Mine was to be considered last, so I sat waiting, wondering, praying, and watching what the other applicants had to go through." It's like a college student going to test, right? Any representative was given the opportunity to question the applicants. The only questions asked were why they wanted to go and what they were intended to do there. Then a vote was taken. Each applicant was approved and left with a smile on his face. I was not sure my experience would be as pleasant. When my turn came, I was bombarded with questions, some of them cruel, some of them filled with suspicion. One man who had been working in a factory since he was demobilized in 1948 and was known by many as a party watchdog and informer, stood up and asked me in a surly manner, "Comrade Robinson, suppose we were to let you go to Africa. How can we be sure that as soon as you get there, the old bourgeois feelings would not return and take hold of you?" Oh my God. Oh boy, would they ever, I thought. At the same time, I told myself to stay calm and be firm, like a good Soviet citizen. I looked directly at the questioner and said, "Comrade, you know as well as I do that your question does not have any valid foundation as far as I'm concerned. Have you made such a statement 35 years ago, perhaps then there'll have been some concern. But now I lived in the Soviet Union for more than 2/3 of my life. I have reached the stage where I think like a Russian and even talk to myself in Russian. The chairman asked if there were any more questions, but no one raised his hand. Then he called for a vote. I could not bear to watch. I closed my eyes, opening them only when I heard the chairman announcing. The recommendation for Comrade Robinson had been approved. So, picture once again, your factory co-workers decided if you're allowed to go on vacation to other country. I later learned that I made it by only 5 votes, whereas other applicants had been approved with near unanimity. Well, now I think he's done, right? Wrong, because Soviet Union was not a low-security prison. The next step was to send the recommendation to the visa division of the ministry. No one except a special courier could be trusted with this task. My recommendation was delivered 9 days later, to the ministry. It was early June 1973. 5 weeks later, I received a card from the visa division that ordered me to report immediately. So he rushed over there during his lunch, and the lady told him, unless your factory agrees to eliminate the paragraph about party committee's opinion that you will not be able to take the African climate, you will not be granted a visa. So those bastards never removed the paragraph. They left that opinion that African climate is not good for African American. So this is going on in June 1973, and then it was back and forth with this recommendation. So they finally removed it, part about bad effects on health in Africa. And now on December 18, 1973, on a bitterly cold day, I came home from the factory and found a postcard in my apartment mailbox. It was from the visa division, ordering me to report to their office as soon as possible with my internal passport, so Soviet internal passport. And I think when you go out of the country, you leave your Soviet passport with authorities and you'll travel with only the foreign passport. So, and deposit of 360 rubles, a lot of money, in a bank in the name of Office of Visas and Immigration Registration. So 1970s, your average salary about 120, 130 rubles. So 3 months worth of your salary is the payment to get that visa. So yeah, it's going great, isn't it? So finally, it's time to get his new passport. Finally, the receptionist pulled out a red passport. What a relief. My trip to Africa suddenly became more concrete in my mind. The receptionist opened the passport and slowly, methodically checked the information inside against my internal passport. Then he looked up and said, "Congratulations, Comrade Robinson. We are giving you a passport valid for 45 days to the Republic of Uganda. I hope you will enjoy your trip there." And now the best part, because remember, Soviet Union was not a low-security prison. But before handling you this passport, there are some certain rules that you must agree to follow while overseas. They are: you must always uphold the integrity of the Soviet Union. You must be presentable at all times, always sober. You must shave daily, and you must not allow yourself to be in doubtful company. If you agree to these requirements, please read them again as they are written on this card and then sign your name. You think it's over? Oh, no, yet, because Soviet Union was not a low-security prison. So I did as he instructed, actually signing 2 cards. One he kept and one went to my passport. One other thing he said: you can only take with you the following items: 2 suits, 3 shirts, 3 sets of underwear for 45 days, 3 pairs of socks, 3 ties, 4 handkerchiefs, and 2 pairs of shoes. I must warn you, if you take along more possessions than you're allowed, they will be confiscated. You think it's over yet? Oh no. Then he placed 2 slips of green paper with a series of code numbers on them into the passport and said, those papers should be given to our bank and you will receive enough foreign currency to last you during your trip in Uganda. Also, all citizens must be vaccinated before going abroad. So here's your vaccination coupon. So Soviet citizens, Soviet people were not allowed to own foreign currency. you could go to prison up from 3 to 5 years for owning United States dollars, German Deutschmarks, whatever. Only when you travel abroad, you'll get permission to purchase a small amount of foreign currency. And this is what's going on here. I have to give big, huge credit to Robert Robinson. It took him 28 years to finally get a permission to leave Soviet Union. So he was quite persistent. But can you imagine you went on a contract to work 1 year and then you spent 44 years, 28 out of those you tried to leave, and they just always found an excuse to keep you inside of the Soviet Union. And now about foreign currency. So at the bank, I handed a clerk the green slip of paper, and after waiting for a few minutes, I was given and signed for $176. The amount of money they determined I was to have for my 45-day stay in Uganda. It's 1973, but still, $176 for 45 days. Obviously, it was just barely enough to subsist on and too little to enable me to extend my stay past approved number of days without going broke. However, even if I had been given $10, I would have gone. I regretted that by fleeing the USSR, I would forfeit my $133 a month pension. So here, I think he's using the official rate of exchange was about 60 kopecks per dollar. So his pension was, I guess, about 100 rubles a month. And he also had 1,020 rubles in the bank. My family managed to save in 20 years in Soviet Union 5,000. So yeah, and so he had to leave all his belongings and that cash. Then I went to Metropole Hotel and purchased my ticket from Aeroflot, the Soviet airline. They first checked my passport, of course, and my vaccination receipt, and they asked for 840 rubles, so $924. So once again, remember just a minute ago he mentioned that he managed to save 1,020 rubles. It was in his bank. 840 rubles was round trip to Uganda, so pretty much it wiped out all his savings. It hurt to have to pay for round trip ticket when I had no intention of returning. Of course, he was smart enough not to say that I would like only one-way ticket. Now, after all this drama that took him almost a year, he went to Ugandan embassy to pick up his entry visa. So it took about a year to get permission to leave and 1 day to get a visa to go to Uganda. So finally, our hero is in airport, ready to leave for Africa. Everything's great, right? Nope. I heard Robinson, Comrade Robinson, someone was calling my name. I turned around and saw a female inspector riding towards me. My heart sank. She showed me my vaccination permit saying, "You need to be vaccinated again." What they did was wrong. So once again, anyways, they canceled his flight and he went back home. So anyway, he goes through several pages of this whole drama. So his actually luggage went to Africa. He remained in Moscow. He managed to get another shot, almost said flu shot. Once again in airport, he was harassed by KGB and he finally got on the plane. So it's total craziness, right? So the guy arrived to the Soviet Union where there was no flights across the Atlantic, right? He came on a ship and now he's flying to Africa and he's finally out of the Soviet Union. Okay, my friends, I think I'll have one more episode number 30, and we're gonna wrap up a book, My 44 Years in the Soviet Union by Robert Robertson. There's a couple other points I marked that he was talking about Soviet economy people, some demands for the USSR. So I'm just looking at my comments. So that will be the final chapter, part 30. And I want to thank everyone who liked this series and was following me. It's definitely an interesting story. And now I'll tell you my story. So my similar events occurred, I think it's 1990, maybe 1989. So I got also invitation from some German friends that want me to come and visit. And same thing, before you go to get a passport, you need to get approved at work. I didn't have those silly meetings by 1990s that were canceled, but we had a guy who kind of like had to approve your request to get a passport, not just visa. to get that passport for travel abroad. Unfortunately, he was old KGB guy. Like he retired from KGB and got this job as kind of like not a security, but kind of like a security, because that research institute used to be super secret outfit making communication system for mostly for the Soviet military. And I just got hired in like literally a month prior. So I was a brand new guy. I didn't have access to anything. I was still going through training, but that guy refused to sign the paper and approve my application. So I was so excited, it's still Soviet Union. I had a chance to go to Germany to see the foreign land for the very first time in my life, and my hopes were crushed so mercilessly by this old guy. I believe that was the very first time that I really realized how much I hate this Soviet restrictions. And yeah, I made a mistake. I told everyone like, hey, I'm going to Germany, because I had no idea about all this stuff. So yeah, this old guy just crushed me, refused to take my application to approve it, and that was the end of my trip. So in this regard, Robert Robertson was more lucky, but it took him 28 years to get out. I was lucky in the second try, because by then Soviet Union was gone and I had no issues getting a permission. It was more trouble getting German visa than actually getting permission from Ukrainian government to get a passport and travel. Okay, so that's all I have for you today. Once again, thank you so much for watching Ushanka Show. Don't forget to like this video. Please post a comment. It supposedly helps YouTube to promote my stories, and we'll talk to you soon. До свидания. Goodbye.